right, guys, we're going to do section 2 notes. So, more with the periodic table. It starts off with saying, on the periodic table below, label periods and groups. So, when we would do this, my groups go up and down. The columns are groups. So, hydrogen is group 1, beryllium is group 2. We tend to skip these. We'll talk about those in a later chapter. We'll talk about them some, but we'll kind of learn why they're in the middle here. Boron is group 13 or 3A, 14 or 4A, 15, 16, 17, 18, or you have the 1, 2, 3A, 4A, 5A, 6A, and then you've got your 3B, 4B, 5B, and you continue on. All right, but anyways, these are the columns or the families, groups. The periods go across. So hydrogen and helium are in period 1. Let me go ahead and do a text box here. This right here, let me get it right here. This would be period 2, lithium, beryllium, boron. Sodium would start period 3. And then potassium is period 4, 5, 6, and francium being 7. Now we will talk about these guys much later on too. It's in chapter 9, but I've rearranged the chapter so we'll see them before that. All right, so since we know now what families and groups are up and down and periods are across, I will tell the kids that they need to remember that. That's something you need to know. You cannot write it on your periodic table though. This bullet point down here that has went on to the next page, it says on each column write an A by representative elements or write a B by transitional elements. So I'm going to do a drawing here. So this group right here in the middle, these are going to be your transitional, or they say to write a B here. I'm going to put a B there. So those are B's. Everything else is A. Everything else is your representative elements. They will call these your transition metals that are in the middle here. They behave a little bit differently than the rest, and like I said, we'll talk about them later. We're going to keep everything simple right now when we first start learning the periodic table. So name some names of some representative elements. I mean, you've got hydrogen, calcium, carbon, arsenic, bromine. It's anything that are in column 1, 2, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. And of course, these guys down here are a little bit different too. If you look, they come from right here. So they are considered transitional also. All right, so the learning check. Identify the element described by the following. Group 7A or 17, period 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, group 17 is here. Period 4, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, that's here. So if I were to go across and down, I'm at bromine. All right, so this one, let me see if I can get this right here. That is bromine. The answer is going to be bromine. If you go to group 2A or just 2, period 3, I'm going to erase some of this first. Let me erase some of these lines. Okay, so it was group 2A, period 3. So I'm in this group right here, and I'm in period 3. So that is magnesium. So magnesium is the correct answer. If I go to group 5A, and groups are up and down, period 2. So 5A is right here, period 2. Now I know it's really easy to go 1, 2 and count nitrogen as group 1 and phosphorus as group 2, but that is not the case. Remember, hydrogen and helium are in period 1. So I'm going to go 1, 2. So that would be nitrogen is your answer. All right, so then we're going to look at our metals, our nonmetals, and our metalloids. And it says, use the picture below, and by what you know of some of the elements, write down where the metals and nonmetals are located. So this is really important because in past years, kids would always struggle with which side is my metal and which side are my nonmetals. And I finally got to a point where I would ask them, well, you know what oxygen is? It's a gas. Is that a metal or a nonmetal? And they would say nonmetal. I'm like, okay, well, you know what side your nonmetals are on then. So that's what I want you guys to do. Write down. Look at this. Look. A lot of people, they know that chromium or iron, they know those are metals. They know that gold and platinum, they know a lot of this is metals. Some of these you guys may not know. You may not realize that calcium is considered a metal or magnesium. But your metals are on this side. And then if I were to ask you, what is oxygen? What is chlorine or argon or neon or helium? These are all gases. So that's what I want you guys to realize. If you're ever not sure, because especially in chapter 5, I'm going to ask you, is it a metal and a metal, or is it a metal and a non-metal? And you need to know that the right side are non-metals. Those are your gases. Of course, there's hydrogen, who is always kind of the oddball. But what you're going to do is you are going to highlight a stair step. I don't know if it's going to let me. I'm going to have to write. So I'm going to draw with pencil or something. I'm going to, it's hard with this mouse, but I'm going to do this stair step that goes down. Sorry, my mouse is bad. And I'm going to do this stair step that goes all the way down like this. All right, so this stair step, you can kind of see what I've done here. You can put that on your periodic table. That will help you out in the future. And you can have that periodic table out all the time. Of course, if you're remote, you can have anything out all the time if you want, but it's a source where all your really, really important information is going to be in one spot. All right, so go ahead on your periodic table. If you have one out in front of you, you will want to do that, that stair step there. All right, so we are going to, let me get back to where I can select. I'm going to watch this video.
Today we're going to talk about the periodic table with respect to metals,
I believe it said.
Metal, a nonmetal, or a metalloid. Let's take a look and talk about that. Let's begin by discussing the properties of metals. This is a piece of gold that has been pressed into a thin foil. That's because many metals are malleable.
Okay, so we are going to, wrong one. We're going to fill this sheet out here. So a metal, you would write malleable here. All right, so let me do a text box. And you're going to fill this chart out as you go through this video.
Malleable means that they can be formed into thin sheets like this gold foil. We can also discuss being able to turn metals into wire. This copper is said to be ductile. Ductile means that the metal can be formed into wire. Metals are...
Okay, so we're going to write down ductile.
are also good conductors. And we can discuss...
All right, so we've got good conductors.
how they're a good conductor in two different ways. They could be a good conductor of heat, right? Like this frying pan here. The reason we use a frying pan is because we can heat it up with this fire and it transfers that heat very well to whatever we might be cooking. Or they could be a good conductor of electricity, right? And so we can see here that Pikachu is sticking a metal fork in one as another way to describe shiny. They are almost all solids with the...
Okay, so we have luster, which means shiny. They're almost always solid.
The
If you
exception
see they have
of
high
mercury.
boiling points. that. So I'm kind of running out of room there.
Room temperature. They have high boiling points, right? It's because they are those solids. Are also notoriously hard to break. So think about it.
All right, so hard to break is the last one. All right, so now we're going to go over to our next one.
That you wouldn't want to punch these lock.
Our non-metals.
So non-metals are the exact opposite of metals. While most of the metals are solid, most of the non-metals are gas. And
so most are gas. I'm gonna put that one here just so it matches up.
And the ones that are solid, like sulfur and carbon here, they're very easy to break, right? So we would say that those are...
So they're easy to break, so they are brittle. So I'm gonna put that one here. You could put them wherever you want to. I'm just trying to match them up.
Brittle. They're also poor conductors.
Okay, so they are poor conductors. They are literally almost the opposite of everything that a metal is.
Okay, we would say they are insulators. So we said most of them are gas. Well, look, if we use these kind of cups to help keep our coffee or hot drinks hot. Air is a good insulator. It's a pore heat through pretty easily. There's some sulfur here.
Okay, so not shiny.
It's pretty dull. The ones that are solid, carbon and sulfur, they're not very shiny at all.
All right, so that's it. I filled this in. I'm not going to put anything here. They're not malleable. They're not ductile. They have low boiling points, so I'm going to put that here, low boiling points. I know he didn't say it in there, but just know that these guys are not, you can't hammer them into thin sheets. You can't form them into wires, so not ductile. All right, so now we're going to look at, oh, I put these all in the metalloid. Guys, switch these, make sure that these are in the right spot. Completely. And if you've already written these down, maybe just switch the tops around. Just kind of cross out the two top columns. There's my nonmetals. So now I'm going to look at my metalloids.
Metalloids are in between metals and nonmetals, both in characteristics and where they appear on the periodic table. So we say that there's that.
All right, so I will also have the kids at this point highlight or somehow outline something, these orange metalloids on their periodic table. And once again, if they are here in class, like they will be able to have that out. That will, even though they'll be able to make it fair, they'll be able to have stuff out on tests, just like you guys can at home. Their best friend is going to be that periodic table because I'm telling them to write down the most important things, to do the most important things. So highlighting these orange ones right here will be very helpful for you if you have a periodic table there at home with you.
Stair step. It comes right down through here. Got an aluminum can. Aluminum is a great conductor of electricity. It is malleable. It's been formed into thin sheets for these aluminum cans, and it's definitely shiny. So it's giving you all the characteristics of a metal. But all the rest of them, boron, silicon, germanium, arsenic, antimony, tellurium, polonium, these are metalloids. Now metalloids are going to share the properties of both metals and nonmetals. Silicon is a perfect example of this.
All right, so it's something called a semiconductor. So right here, I'm going to put semiconductor.
And the very fact that you're hearing my voice and watching this video right now is because of silicon. Silicon is a semiconductor, which means that it is both a conductor of electricity and not a conductor of electricity. We can control that. And because we can control that, we can send information. In summary, the periodic table is made up of elements that we classify as metals, nonmetals, and metalloids. The metals are located on the left of the stair step, and they make up most of the periodic table. Metals are mostly solid. They're often malleable, which means they can be formed.
All right, so I'm going to stop there. You can listen to the rest of it. But you can, just in these, share both. All right, you can write that for all of these. Share both. All right, every single one down here, share both. I'm not going to do it all. You can fill that in if you want to. So now the learning check is identifying each of the following as a metal, a non-metal, or a metalloid. If you look at sodium, it is in column 1, period 3. Remember the right or the left-hand side of the periodic table, those are all metals. So this one is going to be a metal. I'm just going to put an M. Or here, I'll type it out. Chlorine is on the very right-hand side of that stair step. So it is going to be a non-metal. Silicon, he just talked about in the video. If you look at that and if you've highlighted the ones, it is going to be a metalloid. Iron is on the left-hand side of that stair step. So it is going to be a metal. And then carbon is on the, sorry, did I say right hand, left hand side? I need to learn my right from my left. Carbon is on the right hand side of that stair step, so it is a non-metal. It is not one that you will have colored in, so it's not a metalloid, it is a non-metal. All right, so the last learning check, match the elements to the description. It is a metal in group 4A14. All right, so if I'm looking at 4A, if you have a periodic table in front of you, I'm looking at the big one in the classroom. I'm going over to 4A, and I'm looking, I've got carbon, I have silicon, but it's a metal. Carbon and silicon are not a metal. I've got germanium, tin, and lead. So I need, it's gonna be this one right here. So let's do this again. It's gonna be this one right here. Yes, carbon and silicon are in group 14, but they are non-metals, and they're asking for the metals. So a non-metal in group 5A, I'm looking at 5A, and that's the column that starts with nitrogen, and I want non-metals. So that's going to be nitrogen and phosphorus. The others are either metalloids or they're in your metals. So I need metalloids in group 14, or what we know as 4A, that's carbon. And that is, if you look at that stair step, you have silicon above the stair step and germanium below the stair step. Those are your two metalloids. Now, if you highlighted like I told you to, then you would be able to find that real easily. So anyways, that is, section 2. So we will have a worksheet for Friday. That'll be Friday's work is section 1, section 2 worksheet. They're combined. If you need anything, let me know. I will talk to you later.